Hello everybody, welcome to another video. This of course is Chad Carson, and I'm doing another video on what I see as a motivation for why we invest in real estate. And I know just from talking to lots of people and of course my own getting into real estate investing, I think very many people say I'm doing this to build wealth for the future. And I'm doing it to have a certain amount of money, build a nest egg. So I want to go into this idea of wealth a little bit more, and I'll show you why I think it's important to actually define our motivations and think about it. But I want to ask a question, what exactly is wealth? If that's one of our big motivations, what is it? And below here I've collected a few quotes that I think describe some different ways of looking at it. And let's start with one that might be pretty well known, a person who's well known in a lot of real estate circles and financial self-help circles. It's by Robert Kiyosaki, and the name of the book is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. One I highly recommend. I think it's a really good place to start, and in terms of the mentality of wealth and thinking about money and wealth. And what Kiyosaki says is wealth is a person's ability to survive so many number of days forward, or if I stopped working today, how long could I survive? So we can think about it on the a wealth continuum. Try to draw a straight line here. You have a wealth continuum, and we're thinking pretty much in terms of money here. So if you stopped working today, would it be 1 month that you could survive? Do you have that much money in the bank, that much wealth, that if you stopped making some money today and got fired, I could survive for 1 month? That would certainly be the case, and that might even be a little liberal for many people out there. That's the amount of wealth they have. They just don't have enough. They don't have that much cash to support themselves without working a day-to-day job. So 1 month. Or you think about some really, really wealthy. You think about Warren Buffett, who has billions and billions of dollars, and he can live many, many lifetimes and pass on wealth if he wants to, and they don't have to work a day in their life. So we have the billionaires on the other extreme. And so what Kiyosaki says is if you define wealth in terms of money, and money is really the lubricant or the thing that the medium of exchange in our society, and so it represents all sorts of different possibilities. And what he's saying is if you want to survive so many days going forward, have enough money in the bank to pay your bills, to pay your food, to pay your health care, that would be a goal, to accumulate and to grow your wealth to the point where you can survive for a certain number of days in case you couldn't work, in case you were wanting to do something different that didn't make money. And so this is our idea, I think, of retirement. A lot of people have this idea in their head. I want to get a certain amount of money in the bank. That's it. So this is one definition. I think it's the most prevalent definition. And certainly in our real estate business, we're working towards building up a certain amount of assets that produce a certain amount of income. And I go into some videos on that, on getting a certain number of properties free and clear to produce income so that you can continue doing whatever you want to do for the rest of your life. So absolutely a motivation and a way to define wealth. But I think if we stopped here as we're building our business and thinking about wealth, I think we'd be doing ourselves a disservice, because there's some other ways to look at it, and it's not purely this money growth curve. And so let me share another quote with you that has been really helpful for me. And this is about Tim Ferriss. He wrote a book called The 4-Hour Workweek, which I've highly recommend. I don't recommend it if you work a job and you're itching to get out of that job, because it might just put you over the limit. But Tim is a really interesting business philosopher and writes about money and time. And let me share with you his idea of wealth and money. And he says, money is multiplied in practical value by the W's you control in your life. So the W's. So what you do, when you do it, where you do it, and with whom you do it. I call this the freedom multiplier. So we take Kiyosaki's definition, money, okay? So if we had a big pile of money in the bank and we're a multi-millionaire, and all right, now we've made it. Well, maybe you have wealth, but what Tim's saying is, what if you had all that money? What if you were a multi-millionaire and you were in jail? That's a pretty extreme example, but you wouldn't be able to do what you want to do. You're in jail. Now, anything short of a jail, maybe you're not in jail, but maybe you're in the prison of some kind of work situation or some kind of other situation that you cannot do what you want to do. It doesn't matter how much money you have, because you're limited in some way. And what we're saying here is that you'd be less than wealthy if you were in some situation. So an obvious one, you do things illegally and you make a pile of money, you can't do what you're going to do because you might be in jail. But also, if you work a job that doesn't matter how much money you you don't have any time off, or you have little mobility, you're always on call, you're not going to be able to do what you want to do. And this, of course, also applies to when. If you're working, have a lot of money, then you're not going to be able to do it when you want to do it. If they tell you when to go to your work, that's not wealthy in this definition that we're talking about. Where you want to do it, with whom. So this is just something to get you thinking. As you're building your wealth plan, you can model certain people, and I've done this, and you study different business models, different real estate models. Look at everything they're doing. Don't just look at the fact that how much money they're making every year, how many deals they're doing. What does their lifestyle look like? Is the wealth that they've built the kind of wealth you want? Do they have control of what Tim would say, the three currencies of life? Do they have control of their time, their money, and their mobility? Or is it just there's somebody, like most of the models you see, all they do is they make a bunch of money. And because they don't have any time or mobility, they go spend their money, all this gobs of money they have, and they don't have any time or mobility. They spend it on cars and stuff and something to justify why you're spending so much time making all this money. So I'm going to do a whole video on this time, money, mobility, but just let's think about that when we have this idea of building wealth. It's not just about money. Money is definitely important. It's at the center of a lot of this, but it's multiplied by these other ideas, other currencies that we have. All right, and finally, a few more quotes that I think are important. We talk about time and money, mobility, but there's some other things in life that you'd hear the oft quoted say they're more important than money, and so let's think about those. Wealth. Henry David Thoreau says, "Wealth is the ability to fully experience life." Benjamin Franklin says, "Wealth is not his that has it, but his that enjoys it." So true. And then Ralph Waldo Emerson says, "The first wealth is health." So all these have a little bit different angle on them, but I think they emphasize the fact that there are people, and my wife Carrie and I have traveled to Latin America and some different places. It definitely didn't have some people we met didn't have a lot of money, but fully experiencing life, enjoying themselves, having an idea what's important to them, and spending time, if family was important to them or some hobby was important to them, fully experiencing it in the moment, enjoying life. There are a bunch of unhappy people working jobs, making gobs of money. And if you really want to make a definition of wealth, and if you really want to make a goal for something, just purely following those kind of models is going to be less than satisfying. So somehow, some way, and I'm not going to recommend how you do that, but thinking about a philosophy or a psychology of how you live your life. And you can call this psychological or spiritual or whatever you want to say, but are you able to enjoy what you already have now? Because if you get a bunch of money and you're not enjoying what you have now, it's not going to change anything. I heard a quote, somebody said, all the money does is if you were a jerk before you made money, you're just going to be a really big jerk now. And if you were a really good person before you made a bunch of money, you're going to be just an even more affluent, good person. So just think about this. These are character ideas and what kind of person you want to be. And it also has to do just with the basics of health. And we spend so much time and so much energy on other things other than ourselves and our physical health. And if you don't have your health, there's really no point. You're not going to be able to fully experience life, use your money, travel, do anything. So this is a whole other conversation. But taking care of yourself, your first wealth, and your health, I think, goes into this sort of miscellaneous category of less definable aspects of wealth, but just as important or more than any of the others. So I hope that gives you something to think about. I just want to tell you my ideas on what is wealth. And I think all of this is important because we're getting so many nitty-gritty ideas of real estate investing and how you do things and techniques, but this all has to be on the backdrop of your definition, your philosophies of why you're doing this, your motivations. And so keep all these in mind. Of course, the money and your money goals, keep in mind, more than money. I want to make money and I want to have some time and mobility to enjoy these things and take trips. And what I did and take a 4-month trip, I had enough money to do it, but I also had a lot of time to do it because I was an entrepreneur and I had a certain business model that allowed me the time and the mobility to travel for 4 months abroad in South America and Spain. And so those were my currencies, not just money. And then the other parts, the enjoyment of life, fully experiencing life, enjoying it, and having your health to be able to do all these things that we want to do. So I hope that gets you thinking, and I really appreciate your time. We'll see you in the